And hey there, hi there, ho there, and a gracious good Saturday morning to you. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast. We breathe the joy and excitement of UofL women's sports, and yeah, we got stuff today. We got all kinds of stuff today. We've got some great results from games. We've certainly got a full house today to discuss all these. Got some events to talk about coming up. We just got stuff today. I don't know how else to put it for you. And got like I said, a full crew today. Mr. Jared Anderson's with us, and he's got no hot water, he's got no electricity, but he's got a victory that he shared yesterday with me over at field hockey. So, Jared, are you out in the parking lot waiting for it to rain or something? What's going on, bud?
No, no. Well, we have electricity, but no hot water and no heat. So my place is flirting with 59, 60 degrees right now.
Oh, that's shorts and sandals weather there.
Yeah, where's the suntan lotion, pal? Come on, man. Complaining about that this morning. It was
Now the hot water is a little more of an issue when you try and shower.
That I'll agree with.
Yeah, you can. Well, you live close to the Louisville Zoo. You just run up there and take a quick shower, right? You can do that, right?
Yeah, I'll go join the hot tub the elephants have over there.
Don't have to worry about a rinse with an elephant's trunk.
Also, I don't think you'd come out of that very clean.
It's all your perception, Case.
Yeah,
it's all your perception. Case Hoskins, who is going to be covering a little bit of women's soccer tomorrow as he makes his initial foray into Lynn Stadium. Has a great article today up at the Cardinal Couple website about all the events that happened yesterday. And Case, did you manage to get any sleep after all this? Did you wake up good and rested this morning?
I did not because of excitement for UofL athletics, but because my dog refused to go to sleep last night, and it was a late one, as they say.
That dog's a Cardinal fan, was up celebrating, I'm sure. No problem.
She was so excited.
So got Jeff McAdams with us today. Jeff has been fooling around with all kinds of stuff today, but he thinks he's got a firm grip on the broadcasts that we're putting out today. So top of the hat to him, and certainly he's got to be a happy camper because guess who won last night? Louisville volleyball.
Yeah, it's a good match. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but some good statistics out of it that are fun to look at. It was a lot of fun to watch. It was really kind of a cruising sort of thing. We're cruising here on the podcast audio. We're exploring some other possible technologies and setups that may be able to give us a little more control, a little better quality. But that's a work in progress. We're figuring out. It's complicated technology. We're figuring it out. So we'll get there.
So we got all kinds of good stuff lined up for you today. We'll talk about field hockey's big win, volleyball's win, women's soccer not doing too badly either here, guys. And we'll even talk a little NBA. Tough night for Angels' team last night, but Angels looked pretty good in the loss to Seattle. We'll get into all that and more coming up, but as we traditionally do, we'll throw it over to Mr. Case Hoskins for a little scheduling and Twitter information. The floor is yours, sir.
Thanks. It is a decently full schedule, as we've talked about. A lot of these teams playing shortened calendars, but and that mostly gets rid of the midweek games. But the weekends are pretty full and exciting. Coming up today, currently in the chilly and foggy this morning Louisville weather, cross country hosting the Live and Lou Classic over at EP Tom Sawyer Park. Fantastic cross country course that they have over there, as always. Men's soccer playing an afternoon game in Lynn Stadium at 12:30, taking on Notre Dame. You can watch that one on the ACC Network or ACC Network Extra. I would assume I was going to say go down. It's a beautiful day, but you can't. Maybe just go down and sit on the overpass or something and watch from a distance. Do whatever it is that you want to do. I'm going to be probably trying to hang some new outdoor lights, so I'll be enjoying the weather. Volleyball, like Jeff mentioned, taking on Boston College in the second match of their doubleheader tonight. That one's at 7:30 and will be on ACC Network Extra. Interesting note about the records that I saw when I was writing today is that Boston College is not listed as having played a conference game, and Louisville is not listed as having won a conference game after last night. So I guess they're only counting one of two of the doubleheaders since they announced the spring schedule. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. Of course, I mean, this would only be the first victory for volleyball in conference.
But they're listed with none.
They're listed with none, unless
They're
they
still listed 0-1. They're listed 1-1, 0-1.
They must have just not updated it yet then.
It's very strange.
Yeah, that would be my guess, but still, yeah.
Either way. Tomorrow, as the Boston College party continues, women's soccer taking on Boston College at noon. That one will be on Regional Sports Network, so I assume Fox Sports South. So glad I'll be in attendance for that one because I don't get that channel on my streaming platform. And field hockey taking on Boston College at 1:30 down Floyd Street, where Paulie will be handling that one, and it'll be on the ACC Network Standard, so no excuse to not watch that one. Very big rematch for Louisville versus Boston College, and a chance for them to lock up a minimum of a 500 conference record if they can beat Boston College tomorrow.
And the last home game of the year for field hockey too, Jared. Wow.
Yeah, what we were talking about it yesterday. In a 9-game stretch, 4 home games, and at that point it's all over and done with. Kind of crazy to think about when you're so used to the season being spread out. So it's a short-lived home season for UofL field hockey, but certainly one that's going to be for the record books that we're going to talk about for quite some time.
And Jared, just not to interrupt you too much, your case, but Jared will be doing double duty tomorrow. He'll be over with you taking pictures for the start of women's soccer, and then eventually we'll be heading over a little further north on Floyd Street over to Traeger Stadium to get some field hockey photography work there. So if you see Jared out on Floyd Street and he's running, don't worry, nothing's on fire. There's no emergency. He's just trying to get from one event to the other, right?
Reminds me of the old days, running from place to place. Never stopping, never time to rest.
Please continue, Case. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. Yeah, I was going to say, I hope women's soccer can get their work done early against Boston College so that Jared can actually get some action photos. But anyway, as we move down the week, volleyball comes back home after they've traveled up to Boston College. They'll host Syracuse on Friday in Cardinal Arena at 7 p.m. At the same time, men's soccer will be playing at Virginia, and football will be playing at Georgia Tech. So a busy 7 p.m. slot for U of L athletics on Friday night. Hopefully you've got your dual screens set up. And then field hockey will be underway at noon next week. That'll be against Wake Forest, but that one's away, so we will be able to carry the live show at the same time, so that way we can just wrap up the show and turn on ACC Network and watch that game.
And there you go. It's like I say, we're so happy just to have things on the schedule again. And certainly we'll be reporting all this. And if you want to follow us, Twitter is a great way to follow the four of us. And that information coming for you right now from Kate.
Yeah, you're right. I get excited when I talk about the schedule because we've had nothing to talk about for so long that I get to the end and I'm like, I'm done. Oh, wait. No, there's more. Yeah, like Paulie mentioned, we tweet about all the sports when they're on TV or when we're in attendance. I didn't tweet too much about Louisville women's soccer while that game was going on while I was watching it because I was trying to work at the same time very ineffectively. But I tweet as at best case scenario, BST case scenario. When I'm in attendance of the women's soccer games, that'll be one of the primary things I do is live tweet those, provide some comments and thoughts based on how that game's going. Paulie will do the same at field hockey. He tweets us at Cardinal Couple. Jeff is too busy watching volleyball, even when it's just on TV, to tweet about it.
Sorry.
But he does tweet us at Card Couple Radio. Sometimes he had one yesterday. I saw it. Saw it sneak in there about the field hockey.
For some reason. I don't know what was going on. Jeff, were you choking on something?
Well, no, I just hadn't used the account so long. I had to, dust the mic off,
Yeah.
So I'm getting ready to call 911 to show up at your place. Clearing throat, can't breathe. Yeah, go ahead.
Jeff also tweets his at Jeff McAdams. And then Jared tweets his at Mr. Anderson Jared when he's able to get his photos up and running. Had to pull some from the internet because he left me high and dry on
Oh, did
photos
that not go
today.
through to you?
No, I didn't get any
Don't.
email from you. So
Don't.
Well,
we've lost communication somewhere along the way. Communication breakdown. But that's it. That's the
Even,
Twitter
even
account.
I got
We
his
will have to-
email right, Jared. Come on, Jared. Let's get in the game. Even I got his email right. Yeah, I've been able to be in touch with Case. But I do appreciate you doing those on Facebook Messenger, though, in all seriousness, because that's about the only way I can download pictures anymore, Jared. So good work on those. And there's some
we
great.
need to update you to the century, Paul.
No, I've still got my horse and buggy. I don't need a car. And dial-up works just fine for me on the internet, guys. I'm just kidding. But some great photos too. If you are those, I guess, readily available on Facebook for people to see, Jared, or the photos that you've been taking.
I don't post all of them to Facebook, and I've been kind of switching over. There's a way that I can post to Instagram and directly share to Facebook that way. So it saves me a little bit of time in the process. But other than that, I still use Flickr as my storage site, and I also put all the photos onto Dropbox. I separate those by sport. So women's soccer, field hockey, and when volleyball's at home again, they'll all be separated. And for me, that way it's easier if I have players or parents that are asking for pictures, just so I'm not digging through game by game trying to find everything. I'm like, hey, here's the link of all the games that y'all have played, and then I'd let them take responsibility on themselves to go through and find what they're looking for.
And maybe it's my hearing, maybe it's earlier, but I thought I heard you say you're using Liquor as a storage site, and that's never a good idea, sir. Never a good idea.
Put an F in front of there, and you're pretty close.
Flickr it is then. Okay, I just thought I heard Liquor as a storage site, and like,
No,
you drink
I'll leave
that liquor, you might lose some of that stuff. And that's as good a place to start as any. The Louisville field hockey yesterday brought in number 1 and 2-time defending champion North Carolina for a match at a Traeger Stadium. And the Cards, I think you could easily say, had a statement win Friday afternoon, 3-1 over North Carolina, ending that 47-game win streak. Looking absolutely fantastic out there. Very pleased, Justine Sowery, and certainly an incredible effort by Louisville. They got 3 goals on North Carolina. That in itself has an incredible stat right there. But there were so many other opportunities where just a flick of a pad or a flick of a stick kept them from scoring. The Cards really, really were on ball offensively, did the work defensively to get through this thing. And, Jeff, I'll start with you. This was amazing. I called it the biggest win in Cardinal history. Coach kind of said, well, I'd like to get one of these in the NCAA, and that's when we got into the whole drinking thing. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and the commentators on the telecast agreed that it's the biggest win in the history of the program. They did suggest that maybe it wasn't as big as an upset as a lot of people were maybe thinking about it. That the UofL's team has developed over the years, continues to be, and continues to develop, and has reached kind of the upper echelons of field hockey at this point, playing on home turf. Playing in front of a small crowd, but some people there, and that it's not terribly surprising that Louisville was able to step up and do this. It's still a big win, obviously, it's a huge win, but maybe not quite as much of an upset as a lot of people were thinking about it to be. Anytime
like
you got
people in the volleyball commentating box.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anytime you have a team with 47 straight wins and 2 consecutive national championships, beating that team is going to be a big game. Is a big win, obviously. But yeah.
And one of the things maybe you could look at, I'm not going to try to take any glitter or shine off this, but North Carolina had actually been inactive for 12 days following a win at Wake Forest 3-1, had 12 days off, and then hops into a bus, travels to Louisville, plays the game, and now they've got to hop right back into that same bus and head back down eventually to Durham to play Duke next. But maybe it was a bit of road fatigue. It's very possible, something like that. But the bottom line of it was the Cards got the win. Just one quick thing I'll share with you. I was up in the press box getting ready to do the coverage of the game, and who should pop in his mask on but Lucas Piccioli, the associate coach of the Louisville field hockey team. He stops by, puts a hand on my shoulder. He goes, "How are you doing?" I said, "Coach, we need a W today." And he says, "Don't worry, we've got this."
Nice.
Prophetic words indeed.
Yeah.
And so after the game, after we did everything, I went out on the little stoop out there adjacent to the press box. Coach was out there on the field talking with Mercedes Pastor, and he kind of looked up and saw me. I flashed him the L and flashed him 3 fingers for the W, and he pumped his fist in the air. So pretty cool stuff there. But man, in case when I look at this game and the way it is, the Cards offensively were on fire. They had 12 opportunities that they could score on. Okay, and then a lot of them went across the face of the stick. They couldn't quite get the ball, onto the stick. It may have landed at their feet or deflected up, but the offense was just on fire yesterday against the Tar Heels.
Yeah, it was really good. You mentioned a lot of the missed opportunities, but it was really good that they were able to take advantage of, they picked up 3 goals. Really, it was, I think, effectively 11 shots, 9 on frame. The last one, which was the 3rd goal, was kind of a gimme. When Margot Lawn found herself alone in the circle with the pulled goalie. But still, 11 shots, and then you put 9 of those on frame. It was very good offensively, and it was good to see them get those balls in the back of the cage. A lot of times, especially in an underdog situation, you're playing a very good team, and North Carolina is a very good team, make no mistake about it. They didn't win 47 straight matches for nothing, and they didn't just fall off as a program and lose all their good players. So to be able to take advantage of that, especially early, scoring that first goal just 12 minutes in the first quarter and kind of setting the tone. A lot of times in an upset bid, you'll see the team can have a very good offensive showing and just not be able to get across the line. Maybe very good defensive play from the opposing team or just some bad luck. But in this one, Louisville was able to capitalize, and that's what you have to do to win.
Jeff, something that we were kind of talking about a little bit in the press box, and Jared and I kind of texted back and forth on a little bit, was that with about 7 minutes left in this game, North Carolina made the decision to pull their goalkeeper from the contest so they could gain that +1 on offensive attack. And that's really way, way too early that I've ever seen a team pull a goalkeeper, and they were only down 2-1. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, Paulie, you've made your opinions on pulling the goalie pretty clear over the years. So
I have indeed, and I think
I saw that. I saw
Yeah.
that, and I thought, wow, I think I can hear Paulie screaming from out here in J-Town. So
I kept quiet because
yeah.
it wasn't our team that pulled the goalkeeper. Okay.
Yeah. It's a high risk, high reward thing to do in a game. Obviously, I mean, and we saw the risk side of it in the game yesterday. Let's be clear. Okay, Margot was going up against an empty goal, but you're dealing with overall an extra player out on the field, congesting things, causing defensive play. It's not trivial to score on an open goal. If you can get that break, it can be, but getting the break is harder.
Yeah, I didn't mean to take anything from her goal at all.
No,
to say that I don't count 12 and 10. I count 11 and 9 because once you get that one, the shot is straightforward.
Right. Yeah. Once you get that break, it's wide open. But getting the break is hard. Yeah. So.
Oh, definitely. And I think you talked about the high risk, high reward. UNC really showed that they did not have a lot of risk when they took their goalkeeper out. They are incredibly good in the field, and adding that, they had the goalkeeper out for 7 minutes and 4 seconds before Louisville finally punished them for it.
Right.
They played incredibly in the field with that extra player and just refused to let Louisville break. I mean, for that last 7 minutes, the ball was in Louisville's half for the majority of it. And Louisville just couldn't get anything going to get through that congestion, like you mentioned.
Hey, well, 7:10, I think was the time frame on it. So they make that move. They pull the goalkeeper, but they were only able to register one shot during that time frame in the last 7 minutes on goal. So the Cards certainly had a strong defensive effort as well. You got to really give a lot of credit to Holland Barr for the work that she did back in goalkeeper. And Jared, you were down there taking pictures on this thing near the very end. Could you feel the intensity and the excitement out of the players out there as the time drew near?
The first time that I started to notice it was at that 7:10 mark when UNC pulled their keeper, which to me is very early, but the way UofL continued to press, I think maybe North Carolina was feeling a little stressed at that moment. But that's that first moment you realize our opponent is starting to get to the desperation moment where they're pulling their keeper. So in a way, I feel like the confidence level went up. And then in the final seconds, as you saw Amy Plume pass the ball to Margot Lawn for that final score, but at that point, it was just all celebration the rest of the way.
A very good celebration indeed as the Cardinal players left the sidelines, ran down to the goal where Holland Barr was standing and kind of rejoiced and celebrated and jumped around a little bit, and that continued. It's a great win. It's a historic win, but Louisville still has a little bit of a score to settle the rest of this weekend because Boston College comes out to Traeger Stadium on Sunday. You'll remember it was Boston College who ended our season last year, and the Cards have a little bit of payback in store there. I haven't followed them too closely, Case, but Boston College certainly, I think it's a team that's going to come in with maybe a little bit of incentive to knock off the team that knocked off North Carolina, maybe.
Well, it's their season opener, if memory serves. They haven't gotten to play yet, so Louisville will be riding the high of that win, and like you said, Boston College is going to have a vendetta. Louisville is not playing for nothing, though. Like you mentioned, Boston College knocked them out in the NCAA tournament last year, which was payback for Louisville beating Boston College at home earlier in the season. So it's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. I'm trying to see if I can figure out if Boston College has played.
They have not played yet this year.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. I'm trying to talk and navigate their website at the same time. Some of the athletics websites in the ACC are all the same, and some are drastically different, and so they can be a bit confusing to navigate, especially while trying to maintain a thought.
They have a shorter season. They're only playing 7 games. It starts October 4th and runs through November 1st, so theirs is more compressed than just about everybody else's.
Again, ACC field hockey scheduling. What are you doing?
Just throwing darts at a dartboard, guys. Well, a gesture I thought that was a really good one, too, at the end of the game. The legendary UNC coach, Karen Shelton, and one of the nicest people that you'll ever talk to, and it's been my privilege to interview her a couple times in the past years, came over after the contest and came over and talked to Justine Sowery for just maybe about a minute, and the two patted each other on the back, and then Karen walked off. We found out later that Karen actually came over and congratulated Justine on the job they did and the team she had. And Jeff, that's class act right there, bud.
It really is. And, you talk about her being a legend of a coach, and the commentators were commenting about the stadium in North Carolina is even named for her, right? I mean, she's been coaching there for 40 years. She's built this powerhouse of a program in a powerhouse conference, and I mean, it's nice to take a moment and come in and say, hey, that was a good game. I appreciate it. You all have done a great job, and I'm sure looking forward to revenge at some point. But it's you gotta appreciate the sportsmanship there.
If there's two things I regret about yesterday is one, not getting a chance to go down on the field and actually talk and interview Coach Shelton again, because those have always been such great interviews. With the protocols in place or anything, we're not being able to do any of that. Jared's basically the only one that's not a player that's allowed down there to take pictures and gab with the yellow shirts. But and the second thing I regret was not walking the steps to the field hockey office to drink bourbon with Coach Sauer after the game. But certainly an incredible win for the Cards. They, of course, are now 3-0. And if you 1:30 Sunday, I think this one's on the ACC network. If there's any way you can get down there for this, if they'll allow you in. I know some people that were able to get in and weren't on any lists or anything, some ex-players and such. But this should be a good one as BC comes in to try and take the recently earned scepter and crown that we've accomplished here. So good stuff, guys. Good stuff on field hockey there. Anybody got any final thoughts or comments on that?
I'm just really.
Hopefully they had a. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm just really impressed with this team this year. We've talked about this is a good team, but we're playing in an incredibly good conference. But to be able to be 3-0 at this point that's pretty impressive in this conference. So it's exciting.
It's amazing indeed, and was able to. One of the other things I saw after Jared and I were getting ready to leave is I looked down on the field, and I don't remember who it was for us, but we have a couple of players from the Netherlands on our squad, and North Carolina has one or two as well. And so these four girls were standing there talking to each other in their native tongue and laughing. Yeah. And that was pretty neat to see too, that, first of all, the friendship sometimes overcomes, the wins and losses, and that these four girls from the Netherlands were able to kind of get together, say, hey, how are things in your hometown? Pretty good in Amsterdam. How are things in Harlem? In their own native tongue. So pretty neat scene there. A lot of great memories I'll have for a very long time about this win for the Cards, guys. Also,
just get that maturity to celebrate the win, but also move on, prepare for Sunday. I thought they did an excellent job with that last weekend. They beat Duke, which is always a nice feat, but they knew that they had a game 2 coming up, so they didn't let the win linger too long, didn't celebrate too hard. They came back out, got the win, which so has happened since we were last time on air as well. So congrats on both of those wins. So just make sure that they can do that again with tomorrow against Boston College.
And certainly not getting any easier for the Tar Heels. They have to bust back down. I'm sure they're there by now, back down to Chapel Hill. Then they have to turn around and go to Durham, which is not that far a drive, but still it's the aspect of the thing.
They may not quite be there. I think they were saying on the telecast, they were saying they're going to drive about halfway last night and then finish the rest of the drive today. So they may not quite be there yet. So
they did have the great privilege of flying to Louisville on Thursday. They didn't have to drive both ways.
Oh, okay, so maybe I've got the wrong information in. I thought that they'd actually have to bus up and bus back. But if they got to fly in, more power to them. I'm glad that happened. But, all right, hey, great win there. We've also had some other great wins that happened yesterday, and this one took place up in Boston, up in Power Gym, where the University of Louisville volleyball squad went up and swept the Eagles out of the gym, a 3-0 set match and game victory for the Cards. Jeff, that was pretty fun to watch last night, wasn't it?
It was fun. The Cards were, firing on all cylinders. They were doing great things. Looked really good up there. I thought they looked pretty good against Notre Dame last week. But man, they looked like they were on fire yesterday. Only one minor little concern I have with the result is maybe some of the defensive play is maybe not quite where I'd like it to be. But overall, man, that was a great game. Some great blocking. The hitting was just amazing. Outsides on the pins, particularly. Our middles did their usual excellent job. Amaya and Anna Stevenson, but we had some incredible hitting out on the pins yesterday. It was great.
And as you mentioned today in your article, Case, Tori Dilfer did not make the trip. Read what you will into that, but setter Rachel DeMarcus stepped up and said, "You know what? I'm good to go." How about her effort last night?
Yeah, I mean, she had 29 of Louisville's 34 assists, added 4 kills of her own. had an ace, only one service or only one set error. So she's definitely showing that she was ready to fill that void. And Louisville's offense responded, like Jeff mentioned, hitting out of the gym at 474 for the match and a perfect, or no error, not perfect. I mean, might as well be perfect. Third set, hitting 8 for 12 with no errors. So they were very well prepared. Boston College didn't provide a lot in terms of defense at the net. I think only picking up a couple of blocks total. Yeah, just 2 solo blocks, none assisted. But Louisville, like Jeff mentioned, still hit very well from the pins. Very good shot placement. Anna DeBeer had no errors. Claire Chaussee only had 1 error. Michael Jones, who's usually always keyed on, only had 3. Still was 8 for 16. So it was a very good offensive showing from the Cards, and a bit surprising given the inconsistency of the setter. Not that she was inconsistent, that the setter itself was inconsistent.
And on this one, Jared, I was yelling real early into the match, bring on DeBeer. And it's not because I was thirsty. It was because of freshman Anna DeBeer. 8 kills on 12 swings. I'm really, really impressed with this freshman that came to us, obviously from a powerhouse high school program here in Louisville.
Yeah, Assumption is pretty much famous for their volleyball at this point. We've seen player after player, just absolute legends come in and have successful careers at UofL. She fits the Danny Busby-McKelly style very well. Good height for an outside hitter. And she's playing with a bunch of Cardinals that have a lot of experience and made a deep run in the tournament last year. So she's quickly learning and adapting to be exactly what her role is going to be with the Cards. And I thought she executed it well last night.
Jeff, 3 sets. That last set was pretty incredible. 25-9 in that final one as the Cards kind of pulled away. Talk a little bit about Claire Chaussee, 11 kills last night, hit 556 for the game. Holy cow, that's amazing.
Yeah, Claire had a great game. She's become our one of our key outside pin hitters. She mostly swings it to the left. She's great. She's got a lot of power. She's had a lot of power from day one. It was a little bit out of control early, but she's managed to bring some control to it. Over the few years she's been with the team, and she's doing great things. Good blocker, but great hitter. She played very well yesterday. Nothing. She's good. That's all I can say. She's good.
Yeah, she's got some skills there, doesn't she?
Yeah.
One of the things, now Louisville is 1-1 in ACC play, and I think they're still ranked 11th as the last I saw. I don't know if that'll change any before they play again tonight. I'm not sure when those scores come out.
Weird.
Yeah. I just but
yeah.
They were talking last night. I want to ask you a little bit more about this, Jeff, with the pod system. Obviously, the Cards are playing in the toughest of the 3 pods that are out there, in my opinion.
Brutal.
But they were talking about playing the volleyball in the fall and then more volleyball in the spring when the other conferences kind of get back into their swing of thing. How would that affect Louisville as far as games go?
Yeah, so the plan at this point is to have spring volleyball, to have a season, have a pretty reasonable season, and then a 48-team tournament, NCAA tournament. The plan within the ACC is to have this fall schedule. Louisville's playing was originally slated to play 8 games. One's been postponed. Maybe they'll get that in. And then in the spring, what will happen is they will play, a relatively normal conference schedule in the spring, with the exception that teams that they played here during the session in the fall will not be played again in the spring. So we won't be playing Notre Dame or Boston College or Syracuse or Pitt in the spring because we'll already have those games in and on the record. So this record is expected to be part of the overall season that will be basically concluded in the spring. It's an interesting setup, and of course it's COVID-19. Everything's up in the air. Everybody's scrambling to try to do things as normal as possible, but obviously having to make considerations for it. So that's the current plan. That's the current thinking from the NCAA and the ACC. So these games matter. The they kind of have the feel of an off-season schedule, but they will matter in the overall record, and they will matter, hopefully, assuming things don't change, in the spring and for tournament seeding as well.
It does indeed. And in case one of the things I'm finding kind of hard to get used to, and we'll get your feelings on this, is actually playing a team back to back instead of the traditional three teams in one area and then the rotation over a weekend. It seems a little weird to me, but maybe it's a good chance for the lesser of the two teams to learn something and maybe get competitive in the second game. Your thoughts on that?
I think that would kind of go both ways. If you're the team that gets beat in the first game, obviously you've learned maybe what to change. But if you're the team that wins, you also learned what worked and what kind of didn't. So I thought it was very interesting that they are doing these doubleheaders. And I mentioned for field hockey how they only did the first match counting as a conference match so that they could keep the same number, and all those doubleheader games didn't screw up the number of conference games people have played, since some teams only play 7 games and some play 11 because the ACC doesn't know what they're doing. But it's not as big of a deal for volleyball, because you do get a lot of home and home matchups in volleyball. I think in a typical season they play 3 teams twice anyway. So to play 4 teams twice in this fall season, presumably they won't play any teams twice in the spring if it's giant. The COVID-19 situation has calmed down and you can travel a bit more freely and schedule a bit more freely, which I think is what everyone is anticipating. If not, then you'll probably see another pod situation where they just reorganize the pods and play a bunch of doubleheaders again. But like Jeff mentioned, not playing these teams, which Louisville has to be very happy about, that they get to play the toughest teams all at once, and when they are feeling strong and feeling like they came out of their off-season workouts and knew what they were doing. And spring is going to be just such a strange feeling for all of them, depending on what the timing of when they schedule it is. And that's usually just an exhibition season, but it's going to count a lot, and you don't have to worry about all those additional stressors because you're playing the good teams, the best teams at the normal time, and then the other teams in the weird times.
Yeah, some of the commentary online has talked about this pod that we're in being such a difficult pod. This really is basically all of the top teams in the ACC and Boston College. But to be fair, Boston College is actually pretty good. They were pretty good last year. They're pretty good this year, but they're not at that
They
level.
Actually beat Louisville, didn't they, last year, if I remember correctly?
Yeah. So I mean, they're a good team, but they're not quite at the level of the others in this pod. You got Pitt, you got us, you got Notre Dame, and you got Syracuse. Syracuse swept Pitt the other day, right? Last week. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. So they tend to be mid-pack ACC, but some years they're pretty good, and they look pretty good this year. I watched some of their play. So, you look around the rest of the ACC. Florida State's usually up in there. Maybe not quite so much this year.
Miami was receiving votes.
Miami
AVCA poll
gets a little bit of attention sometimes. NC State
Georgia
sometimes,
Tech,
but not.
Georgia Tech, I think, was ranked 3rd in the preseason ACC poll.
Georgia Tech's doing pretty well, right? So it's the northern and the southern pods that are really, really tough, right? The middle pod with all the Carolina schools and Virginia is they're good. They're good teams, but they're not quite at the level of the northern and southern pods.
I think I'm going to miss also if they continue in the spring, provided COVID didn't get them all. Some of the non-conference rivalries, Jared, that we've had the chance to go to. We've made drives to Kentucky. We've certainly seen how the Cards have played against Western Kentucky, and also an incredible matchup in Cincinnati against a very good team up there. I'm going to miss some of those. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's just something that's almost like sentimental about road games. And it isn't always the game itself at that particular time, but the trip going there, going back, the people you're with, the preparation for it, the excitement that builds around it. There's just a lot that goes into those road games. So I certainly miss it. And I know men's soccer played at Kentucky earlier this week, and that was kind of one of the things like, man, I kind of miss that drive to Lexington and all of that. And going to other stadiums and hearing their fans and their crowd and the experience. So I'm right there with you, Paul. I miss it.
Based on the result, I don't think you missed much in Lexington.
No, in result, I certainly didn't miss it.
Yeah, we'll just gotta put that in its corner and let it sit there by itself. Not to speak badly of men's soccer, but Jeff, most of all, I'm going to miss that. Please use your indoor voice guy that uses the PA system up at Kentucky.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss him. I think I may just give him a call and have him yell at me for 30 seconds so I feel better. All right, guys.
What the heck?
All right, let's test the clipping there. All right.
I might have to cut that one out.
Yeah.
Can't even.
Some audio processing on that.
You got technical difficulties. They are still there, despite the expertise of our guys doing this here.
Find out if I can just cut the volume level of one thing in the recording here.
I'm glad he's going to be doing that instead of me. That's all I can say. All right, guys. What else we got on volleyball here tonight? What does she do tonight? When she takes a look at the results of last night, and she gets a chance to kind of look at this a little bit more, does Danny say, "May I need to get some of these other players in there to get a little playing time?" Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, so I kind of hinted at this on the defensive side, particularly on the digs, that the numbers were a little odd. You had Aiden Bartlett got to start last night as a DS. She's a freshman. I want to say from Kansas. I don't remember that for sure. I may be wrong in that. She got to start as DS, and she did fine. She did a very fine job with it. But you look at the stats, and she had 4 digs in the match in 3 sets played. Mia Stander, who's been pretty much our stalwart DS for a couple of years now, comes in, only plays in 1 set, and gets 4 digs. Alexis Hamilton has 5. And to some degree, I think you can probably look at it and say, okay, Boston College is probably trying to aim away from Alexis. I would, if I were up hitting, I would want to try and hit at her. But you look at some of those other numbers, you think, well, maybe we do need to have Mia as our main starter there and let Aiden develop and learn a little bit more. She's a freshman. She's got, that's understandable. I think she did fine, but that would be the only thing that I would look at. Otherwise, it's going to be, yeah, hey, go do what you did last night because that was great. Try it again.
Be better from behind the line.
Yeah. A little bit.
Find a girl.
You gotta go positive against a team like Boston College.
Yeah.
I think.
And I'm sorry, I got a little distracted there, guys. I'm looking at my window while I'm talking on this thing, and I'm watching a squirrel actually climb my flagpole out in my front yard. And the squirrel's got to be 20 feet up off the ground, and he's going up to inspect the American flag.
Did you put some peanut butter up there? And I'm trying to figure out why the squirrel wants to climb to the top of the flag.
I can't figure it out either. The flagpole does kind of run adjacent to a tulip poplar tree I've got. And I'm kind of waiting to see if he's going to use that as a third-way and expressway to the tree. But when my odds are on the squirrel not making it, I've got 5 to 1 currently if you want to take that. But it's so. When we look at it, volleyball came back as we all kind of thought they would, that we hoped they would after a very tough Notre Dame team. That the Cards were in the game. No, every one of the actual sets in the match, they were in it. They just had an incredible servers job by the Irish as well. But all right, final thoughts on volleyball here, Jeff?
Yeah. Hey, let's go have another fun match like we did last night. That was a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, I love watching. I love watching Amaya Tillman and Aiko Jones blocking together. Those two are an amazing blocking combo, and it's so much fun to watch.
And as I mentioned, that one 7:30 on the ACC network. Extra for you all to choose to watch on your viewing devices. Earlier in the week, Case, we had women's soccer, the home opener at Mark and Cindy Lynn Stadium. on Floyd Street. The Cards bringing in the Syracuse Orange and taking them down, score 3-0. And I think there was that was a fun one. Jared and I were down there for that one. And Jared, well, I guess we'll kind of start with you instead of Case here, in case you'll get your shot at this in just a second here.
No problem.
The Cards go to 2-1. Jared, you were down there. It was really a tale of two halves in this game, wasn't it?
The first half, they looked out of system a lot. I don't think they were prepared for what Syracuse's game plan was. Maybe just a little too comfortable after last weekend getting the early win against Miami. You'd have to assume that Coach Karen Ferguson days maybe ripped him a new one at halftime and said, "Hey, look, here's we're not executing well. We're not putting forth the right effort." But I thought they made some fantastic adjustments. They exposed the Syracuse weakness. They turned an aggressive defense as a way to propel the offense forward and found some openings. It was real nice. I mean, especially to see Jess get a goal this year. I know she's been just kind of like dying to have a goal even last year, getting those shots off. And then, of course, Amina, nobody can stop her even when you triple or quadruple team her.
Case, let's talk about duos here. Let's talk about tandems here. Delaney, Snyder, and Amina Ekic are working very, very well together, but we've also got a very good duo on the defensive side of the ball with Sarah Hernandez and Gaby Cazellas.
Yeah, and I think you can make that a trio on defense with the way that Maisie Whitsett has been playing. I did finally figure out, all it took was me seeing the Cards on a familiar venue to see them on Lynn Stadium Field to understand what formation they're actually running and how they're doing it. But Maisie Whitsett has really come into her own on defense. They mentioned on the broadcast about how 2 years ago she was tied for the team lead in goals and then fell off last year, but that was because she was moved to a reserve defensive role, while Delaney Snyder really opened things up on offense, became a dynamic duo with Amina Ekic. And this year, Maisie Whitsett is really showing that she did come into her own defensively, learning behind Neve Nelson, moving to fill that void, and she's been playing really well. And Sarah Hernandez, Gaby Cazellas, like you mentioned. In the first half, Louisville a little bit lucky to not give up a goal. There was a number of flurries where Syracuse had a bunch of opportunities. Gaby had a couple of good saves. Syracuse hit the bar a couple of times. Syracuse missed a couple of times. Syracuse got called offsides on a goal that was very close. But they did manage to head to halftime 0-0 and then took over in the second half.
And Jeff, I think Karen Ferguson days probably summed it up pretty quickly and accurately in her post-game comments. She goes, "We came alive because of our defensive intensity in the second half, which allowed us to create turnovers and be who we are, an offensive team." I've got to agree with that statement.
Yeah, I think in basketball or just about any of the other field sports, you can generate offense from your defense, right? We hear that from Jeff Walls with basketball all the time as well. The first part of your offense is your defensive play to force a turnover or whatever it may be, and I think that's probably true here as well. That if you're able to concisely, is that the word I'm looking for? Conclusively shut down the other team's offensive drive and get a good outlet pass, then you're on the way towards a good offensive attempt of your own, and you get the other team behind the foot, and there's your opening. Let's take advantage of it. We saw that some.
I think the old saying is a steal is the first pass in a fast break.
That's kind of the phrasing I was looking for. I've heard various forms of it, but yes, I've heard that a lot. Yes. Yeah.
Great offense begins with defense, certainly in the same kind of vein. Epic Amina Ekic, guys. She had an assist, 2 goals in this 10-minute blitzkrieg that the Cards put on Syracuse to start out the second half. Jared, you were down there watching all that. That was just an amazing 10 minutes, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I was joking with you Thursday after the match. I was like, well, I guess Amina didn't like that I said she might not score as much this year. Now that she's got 4 goals on the year already, and even that when you had the assists, her point total is crazy high for a 3-match period.
10 points. She has had a hand in all 6 of Louisville's goals.
Wow.
I mean, that's just a special player, and And Coach Ferguson Days will mention that in interviews all the time. She's just like how special of a player Amina is, how fortunate UofL was able to get her. I think she's one of those players that's helped UofL take the next step in becoming a better program. We're not at the point yet that we're a top program, but just having her on the team, you can expect UofL to be ranked and be competitive in each match they play. She is such a strong player that opposing defenses have to game plan around her, which is starting to open up opportunities for everybody else. I think that's where we saw Delaney get her goal, I think off that corner where Jess managed to get the header into the goal there. That was set up by Amina as well. So she's allowing opportunities for the rest of the team at this point to succeed and excel further than maybe even what we expected.
And certainly a very nice, solid win for the Cards. They turn their attentions now to a Boston College team. And in fact, when I was doing the post-game interview with Coach Karen Ferguson Days, I asked her specifically, how do you prepare for Boston College? And she said, well, I'm about to find that out now. They're playing their first game of the year, and I'm watching it. So a Boston College team who she considers to be a really good one, maybe they didn't get the best of the starts to the season for them, but they come in with some challenges for us, would you say, Case?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up their game right now.
I think it was this Notre Dame, I believe, beat them 2-0. Maybe I'm wrong on the
That's
score
correct.
there.
Yep.
Okay.
It was 0-2 loss to Notre Dame. It was just an abysmal. It was coming on right after the Louisville game, and it was just like 54 and raining. It was already dark. It did not look like a pleasant match at all, which is usually going to benefit the better team, especially the home team. So Notre Dame put it to them with a 2-0 win. So, Boston College has not been a huge threat to Louisville in recent years in women's soccer. I would expect that to kind of hold true again this year. Louisville has shown that they're very strong offensively. The new formation they've switched to, which is officially a 5-3-2, and Louisville's individual box score actually shows me where people started today. Is very, very proud of them for getting that correct. But that 5-3-2 really allows Louisville to work from the back, but also buckle down defensively when they need to. We saw it against Florida State. It seemed like maybe that was just kind of a defensive lineup, but it was actually the formation they're going to run with, it looks like, since they deployed it against Syracuse with good effect. It allows them to play strong defensively, but also you take those two outside players in Jolene Ballard and Raven Alexander, who both came in as freshmen as forwards, and it allows them to play up really wide so that you kind of play three in the back instead of five. So Louisville should look to get up on Boston College early like they did against Miami and not give them as many chances like they did against Syracuse.
And I'll ask you and Jeff this one, since you guys were viewing this one. The crowd noise that they were pumping in for this, I'm not a fan of this. Jared, I don't think you are either, from what I was able to gather from you. It's kind of like a kind of muddled white noise roar over and over again. I don't know how it sounded at home when you were listening to it, but when we were there, it reminded me of like being trapped in a dungeon with a bunch of prisoners screaming, okay? It's just not a great thing. I don't like this crowd noise that they're pumping in there. But what are your guys' thoughts on it?
I'll be interested. Oh, yeah.
Like
Jared, you go ahead.
I don't like it. Being there, listening to it, it's more of a distraction than having music play to me.
Did you ever get any players to comment here? Did you ever talk to any players about it yet?
To ask the players about the noise itself. I know that for them, it's definitely felt weird having such a small crowd there because they're used to something like real noise from the crowd, not this computer generated white noise that it sounds like it's on a 3-minute loop. So of course it's going to get annoying after a while. It's the same thing playing over and over again. It almost sounds like you're sitting at a restaurant and you're hearing just background conversations that are muffled and maybe some plates that clink together a little bit. I don't really like it. Maybe looking at some earplugs or something tomorrow just so I can tune it out.
See what you've got to look forward to, Case. You get to hear this muddled noise live now.
Yeah,
Some
I'll
of your
be
thoughts?
interested to see the comparison between having heard it on the broadcast and hearing it live. It did sound sometimes like they had the songs like that would normally be sung by supporters playing in the background, maybe just very faintly. It threw off the announcers at one point. One of them noted that it sounded like the small crowd that was there was getting very loud before the other announcer pointed out, no, they are pumping in crowd noise. So I think it's very strange that they're going to allow at least some number of spectators and then still play the crowd noise. It's just it's a weird juxtaposition in my opinion.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I didn't notice it too much on the broadcast. It was a little bit that was there, but it didn't come across super loud, so I didn't notice it too much. I don't know if maybe I was only half paying attention anyway, but it could contribute to it. But
it was not as loud on the broadcast as
yeah.
Regular crowd noise would have been. If it was any other season that you're watching a game on TV, it's much louder than what was being played, at least through the broadcast. Whether they just maybe didn't have a crowd mic because there's no crowd on the broadcast, and it was just picking up from somewhere else from the field mic. But it's tough to say. I will be interested in, and we'll report back next week when I can compare and contrast.
There you go. We'll have an analysis far superior than mine, because I felt like I was in a dungeon.
It would make more sense if you adjust the volume of the noise with how the flow of the game is going, instead of just having it at a set volume the whole time. Because with a live crowd, if you're driving downfield, you've got an open shot, you're making a solid play, the crowd noise is louder versus if they're on defense and their backs are pressed to the goal, or if they're just kind of out in midfield, nothing's going on. So if they adjusted the volume with how the gameplay was, I think it would be a better representation and more accurate.
I've got to agree with it, and certainly I think they can do better, and I hope they will.
I've noticed during NFL games, and this thought just occurred to me. In the NFL games, the responses to what's happening just don't make sense. They'll have excited noises from something happening when it's the home team that's having something bad happen to them. The home crowd would not be excited. I think what they should do for all of the sports, all of the venues that are using pumped-in crowd noises, you should give one fan the soundboard that has all of the different sounds that you could make as collective fans, and then they just get to control it based on it's a home fan. Home fan gets to control what's happening for the crowd noise. Right? It seems the way it should be. Same way in baseball, they're like loud when the pitcher is pitched.
It's an interesting concept for sure. Of course, in this new era we're doing all this in, I guess they'll work it out eventually to the betterment, but kind of interesting. Like I say, I wouldn't miss it if they stopped it. Okay. So a lot of great things going on with University of Louisville athletics. Let's take just a quick kind of detour here and head to the WNBA, where Angel McCoughtry and the Las Vegas Aces are now in the finals, playing against Seattle. Kind of a back and forth contest last night, guys. The Aces came back and actually made this thing a close ball game going into the start of the fourth quarter. Angel McCoughtry playing her ever-loving heart out with 24 minutes, 20 points, and 9 rebounds. But the fourth quarter, unfortunately, belonged to Stewie and to Jewel Lloyd. And the Seattle Storm get the 93-80 win over the Aces. I really feel for Asia Wilson and Angel McCoughtry. They tried so hard, and then all of a sudden, boom, Stewie just kind of took this thing over, Jeff.
Yeah, and I want to call out Sue Bird as well, who record-setting number of assists in playoffs and in the finals. I think 16 she had, which is just amazing. So credit to her as well for very good game played. Yeah, the Aces made a great comeback towards the end of the third quarter, but just couldn't sustain it. And the Seattle Storm was a little too much for them. So, it's a series. Let's see what happens in the rest of the games of the series. So.
Stewie went 37 minutes, scored 37 points, and had 15 rebounds. and it's rumored she drove the bus home after the game back to their part of the bubble. An amazing effort by her. Sue Bird didn't take part in the offense a whole lot here, Case, but certainly Sue Bird was out there for 31 minutes and had 15 assists. Can you imagine? Wow.
16, yeah, and 10 in the first half. She was just on fire. But when your top two scorers, Jewel Lloyd and Breonna Stewart, are shooting 64.7 and 62.5% respectively, it's pretty easy to rack up assists when every other basket is going in, it seems like.
That pivotal fourth quarter, the Storm outscored the Aces 24-13 as they take the 93-80 win. They play the game 2 of this series, and that'll be on Sunday. As actually, the Aces were considered the home team for this because of their first place finish during the regular season. Everything taking part in the wobble, though. I just kind of was watching that back and forth a little bit with volleyball last night, guys, and they both ended right around the same time. One thing that kind of hit me, Jerica Hamby not playing. She's out for obviously the rest of the playoffs and the finals because of a knee injury. I really think the Aces could have used her last night, Jared.
Yeah. When you get to playoffs, especially finals, you're going to want all hands on deck. You're playing the best of the best at that point. And I believe did they have 3 out last night due to some type of either illness or injury? So that puts a little bit of a damper in your roster.
As I think, they usually don't get many minutes from Sierra Burdick anyway. But Sugar Rogers only had 7 minutes last night. Lindsay Allen only had 5 minutes. I was glad to see Young get a little more playing time for them. I thought she sparked things up a little bit, but tough go for the Aces. Let's hope they can come back and even this thing up at 1-1 on Sunday. All right, boys, we've had a full show today,
Yeah.
We're going to move it on into final thoughts here. And Jeff, we got more fun coming up for you this weekend, buddy.
Oh, yeah, another volleyball match tonight, another field hockey game tomorrow, and women's soccer. I'll probably try and tune into that as well. And less knowledgeable, but still fun to watch. So, yeah, I mean, it's great to have sports back. Let's be careful about it, and everybody stay healthy.
In case you get to make your maiden voyage into Lynn Stadium tomorrow out there, and certainly I know you're excited about that. Some final thoughts out of you?
Yeah, looking forward to it. Final thoughts are just rooting for all the Cards. It was a great week for them. Field hockey with 3 wins. All 3 of their wins came since our last show. So just a great week for them. Good week for little women's soccer. They'll look to wrap that up before they go on their next week and a half break. And volleyball bouncing back from the unfortunate loss to Notre Dame, and then no chance to get revenge immediately due to some other circumstances. So looking forward to wrapping out the good weekend and moving forward with the rest of the season as much as we can get in.
Jared, you'll be cameraing on 2 different locations on Floyd Street tomorrow. Some final thoughts out of you?
Yeah, just first hoping for good weather, partially for me, but also it's a lot easier on the players when you've got good weather. Better control, less risk of injury. And just hope we get a couple wins on Floyd Street tomorrow, and then a couple wins on Floyd Street going into next Friday and Saturday as well when volleyball returns.
Certainly so. And I guess final thoughts, just certainly we're so happy to have things to talk about, sports back. But certainly let's all not forget that we are in the middle of a COVID-19 epidemic here. And don't forget to wash your hands. Don't forget to wear your face mask. Don't forget to socially distance. Use sanitizer when you can. But still try to have a good time with it and enjoy the joy and excitement that is UofL women's athletics. So I would tell Hazel Miller to sing us on out of here. And I guess, Casey, you'll add some appropriate music for the finished product on this. But I hope everybody has a great weekend. We appreciate you listening in to the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast.